Welcome to the internet, live from my apartment in fabulous downtown Salt Lake City and a non-basement resident somewhere in the Logan metropolitan area. This is the Red Line Podcast. I'm your host, quote, trail enjoyer, unquote, Dunstan, and these are my co-hosts.
Kyle, quote, Jostin's customer, close quote, Holland, and...
Alex, quote, congrats on graduating, Kyle. Fielder. Today we're discussing rail trails, the popular but somewhat controversial conversions of disused rail right-of-way for bike paths. Are these separated bikeways a good idea, or could they perhaps be put to better use? All this after the news.
Oh, we have to do the whole history and, context or whatever thing, right? Before we can jump straight into the takes.
Yeah, because, I don't know, we've never talked about rail trails before.
All right. The podcast or whatever. Do.
Gotta turn on my news voice. Just a few days ago, the very first section of Seattle's Link Line 2, which will eventually connect Redmond and Bellevue to downtown Seattle, opened for public use. The 8-station stub line doesn't yet run across the lake to Seattle because of issues with the track work on the floating bridge, but the rest of the line is expected to open sometime next year after issues are resolved. Services will initially run every 10 minutes, with increases after the line is completely open. When Link Line 2 does finally begin full operation, it's expected to pull as many as 52,000 daily riders, a huge amount. Congrats, Seattle, and we'll see you when the bridge opens.
Is this the line where they, screwed up the entire bridge and had to redo a bunch of pylons, or is that a different one?
Yeah, the contractor messed up the pylons, and so the bridge is just kadoomed.
Awkward.
It is awkward.
And what's the deal with the floating bridge, exactly?
Well, it's a really big lake, and so the bridge floats on it.
So, the bridge supports, float, but there's still, clearance under the bridge for boats, or the boat...
No, I think it,
bridge is just at,
just
water
floats
level?
on the water. Like it's a pontoon bridge.
That's weird.
Big lake.
What about the waves?
Heavy bridge. I don't know, man. I'm not an engineer. This is your thing.
Right. I'm not a real engineer either. That's Alex's thing.
Oh, that's not my thing. I'm no real engineer.
Damn.
The point being,
All right,
it's heavy.
The point being, no, we'll get Grady from Practical Engineering or whatever on, and we can learn about the bridge.
I would love to.
Imagine getting a guest just for the news segment.
Okay, this has been the news.
Do.
Okay.
What a symphony! What a
symphony. Alex, why don't you do the history section? Just cause.
Sure, just cause. So
good one.
So we're all familiar by now with the story of how the railroads declined, competition from airlines, cars, and most fatally trucking resulted in the abandonment of many formerly busy lines in the middle of the 20th century. People weren't exactly
Competition
sure
from trucking is a funny way of saying the government started funding highways instead of railroads.
Okay, I was trying to be diplomatic, Kyle. The simple fact is that is the reason it died out, regardless. Trucking stole all of its traffic.
Yeah, but it's not really the root cause of why trucking stole
Your
its
mom's
traffic.
not the root cause.
I think the
No,
audience...
she isn't. Born too late.
I think they should be able to connect the dots if they've listened before.
I think so too.
Well, people weren't exactly sure what to do with all of these abandoned lines, but an ingenious idea popped up starting in the mid-1960s. And this genius idea was the first ever rail-to-trail conversion, which was completed in Wisconsin in 1965, making the Elroy Sparta Trail the oldest such pathway in the United States.
I didn't know rail trails were such a old thing. I've always in my brain lumped them in with much more recent 90s, 2000s, 2010s era bike infrastructure.
Well, and as we'll see, they didn't kind of hit their heyday until the late 80s and the 90s, but this is the proto stages, right?
Ah, gotcha. Back when we were building elevated bike paths out of wood decking and Schwebebahns.
Well, in 1968, the National Trail System Act was passed, which I haven't heard of before, providing funding for the trails across the country, including many, many more rail trails. The infamous 4R Act of 1976, the Railroad Revitalization and Regulatory Reform Act, which is a mouthful, the 4R, that's pretty clever, which deregulated the railroad system and effectively paved the way to a quadropoly of Class 1 railroads that we have today, also helped fund more rails to trails.
Yeah, so the government was like, let's be evil and let's completely deregulate the railroad industry and, you know, make it so there are only 4 absolutely dog shit railroads left in the country. And then, you know, to sort of mitigate our evil very slightly, and, you know, sort of help cover up all of these railways that are going to be abandoned because we made this act, let's make some money so that those old railways can be turned into bike paths.
You know, to mitigate some huge evil sort of slightly seems to be an alarmingly popular reason to fund large bike path projects.
Like the
Not that I'm complaining, but
the Mountain View Corridor project.
like the Mountain View Corridor,
Yeah.
like the Legacy Parkway. Yeah.
What's that one? Is it the Union Pacific Rail Trail in Davis County that's like parallels the new Davis County corridor, sort of?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Ooh, speaking of rail trails, any idea when the one that goes up by like Echo Reservoir was built? Because there's this really weird, only partially paved rail trail that goes in and out of the median of the interstate.
I did not even know that existed. So
I didn't know
should
until
look
I
it
looked
up.
on the map. All right.
Look it up.
Yeah, following this act, the 4R Act, which I'm in love with. I'm glad they didn't make it an acronym. The amount of abandonments increased rapidly. Woo! So Congress decides to use the trails for rail banking, with the idea that they can be preserved if they're needed for future use, which is not a bad idea.
No, it's smart. I do like that you said woo. Like, was that like the ghost of the oil industry briefly possessing you, or?
Oh, yeah, that happens a lot just because of my family. So.
Oh, I see. Well, yeah, no. So I don't know. It seems like a good idea to me, right? You're gonna maybe someday we'll want to have trains go here again, but for now we'll have bikes go here.
Yeah, it's not...
We're foreshadowing just a little bit here.
It's not the worst idea they've ever come up with. I'll give them that.
Looks good on paper.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds nice.
Yeah. In 1986, the Rails to Trails Conservancy was created and has become the main lobbying group for such rail to trail advocacy since, which I'm surprised there's lobbyists for this. And
yeah, I guess you would call it maybe more of like an interest group, or
the all-powerful bicycle lobby.
It's like the Sierra Club, right? Like,
yeah,
a rather powerful citizen organization, and slightly less evil than the Sierra Club.
Yeah. Well, they've obviously been successful because by 1989 there were more than 200 rail trails, and the number continued to climb rapidly through the 90s and aughts. By 1994 there were over 600, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
And the very helpfully named Historic Union Pacific Rail Trail I mentioned earlier that goes up to the Echo Reservoir from vaguely close-ish to Park City was built in 1992.
So you see, we like to talk on this podcast sometimes about how the government has like trends it goes through, right, of things that it likes to make.
Eras.
Yeah,
phases.
it goes through trends. I like trends, right? Like we had in the 90s and early 2000s and late 80s, we had the light rail period, and then we had after that the streetcar period during the Obama administration, and now we have the BRT period, and before that we had the metro period. And like, so first of all, I'd like to, sort of note that this is like a continual slope downwards. But the point The point being that the government just, sometimes gets an idea and gets really obsessed with it, and then, uh, builds like 20,000 miles of trails.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, if they could build it like they built the interstate, where they just master plan like a nationwide frame for the whole thing.
My
Like,
question
could we
is,
have a nationwide minimum viable trail network?
like, how much would it even cost, right, to just put a two-way bike trail next to every freeway in the country? Like, I feel like it wouldn't cost that much because it's not that big and it doesn't require all the same subsurface work as a road. Like, I don't know,
Yeah, I've seen the trails around here. You don't have to put a subsurface if you don't want to.
$20 billion for the whole country, maybe? I don't know. It couldn't be that much, right?
Yeah, no, it can't be that much either.
Like,
Although I
the
wouldn't
cost
mind
of
doing
one
it.
Silicon Valley BART, you could build a rail trail or a trail along every freeway in the country.
Bloody hell. I mean, I'm more of a trails on state highways sort of guy, but like, I dig the idea.
Yeah.
Well, as you said, there's over 20,000 miles. There's actually 22,000 miles of rail trails that have been built, making it possible to travel hundreds of miles in some states without ever touching a road, which is kind of my
Rare
dream.
beauty.
And the rail to trail, what is that? Rail to trail C. Oh,
The Rail to Trail
Conservancy, yeah.
Conservancy, yeah.
They're working on what they call the Great American Rail Trail, which would go from Washington, D.C. to Washington State, and is apparently like half done already, and we actually have a map of that.
Yeah, I stole a
you
little
can
map
see.
from their website, and you'll notice that the entire problem here is basically Wyoming. Um,
Checks out.
like even Idaho, like, say what you will about my home state, but they've managed to, like, do their bit. But Wyoming is just like, how about no?
Well, and that's northern Idaho. That's like that's
The Hitler
boonies.
part, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And then I have
And there's a similar effort going on the East Coast with the East Coast Greenway project, which is
yes.
trying to get a bike path all the way up and down the coast. They're really just patching together whatever they can find.
Well, and apparently Missouri is building a trail, like, has halfway between Kansas City and St. Louis already built, and they're going to finish that out as well. So, like, there'll be you'll be able to bike between Kansas City and St. Louis if you want.
Cool.
Yeah. And you'll see this little map I have here that I stole from the Rail to Trail Conservancy website as well. They have a lot of good map resources just of kind of the Northeast and just how many trails have been built, especially around like Chicago, and you can bike between Pittsburgh and Washington D.C. Like, I don't know, that's pretty cool, man.
That is very cool. I would go on a lot more long bike rides to cool places if I could just, get there safely and just focus on pedaling.
Are you telling me you don't want to bike next to a state highway for 400 miles to get to Denver?
No, I don't. I gotta say, my best state highway biking experience I have ever had in my entire life, and probably ever will have, was yesterday when I went up on State Route 65, which is still officially closed for winter because the Nordic Association grooms it for cross-country skiing and snowmobiling, but all the snow melted. But UDOT hasn't opened it yet because there's a road bike race this Saturday. So you slot it in right there. Somehow one car still got in there, but pretty good.
Wait, is that the one that goes to Tooele over the Okuras?
No, other way.
Oh, so like over
It's up
to...
Emigration. It goes to
Okay.
Morgan County.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's
Well-
like a rail trail, but really wide. And not on rails.
But looking at the map, there's some pretty long sections. I doubt they do this anywhere because it doesn't seem like it would happen. But it would be so cool to ride on the rail trail, push a button, and then the crossing guards come down.
Oh,
And then
that
you
would be
could
so
keep biking.
based.
Like actually being able to stop traffic on demand.
That's what I call heritage preservation.
Yeah. And then you
Yeah,
have the
for real.
signals if you decide to reconvert it.
Ooh, yeah, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
an idea.
And if you plan it like a rails and trails project where you construct the rail trail off to the side of the right of way
Hey, don't do spoilers,
and you
Kyle.
explicitly leave space for the train and you
Piece of shit.
leave and maintain the crossing gates. Thanks, you too. I don't know, it's starting to look like a pretty slippery slope towards building a train.
A
We couldn't have
slippery
that.
slope.
I'm gonna have so much fun bleeping the spoilers later.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm getting it. I'm about to get into my ticket buying thing, so we're gonna have to take a short break here.
Alright, breaking on G.
You guys can learn my debit card number as I like mutter it to myself. Salt Lake City, state, Utah, zip code. You see how I shut up for that one?
The zip code?
Yeah, because you can use your zip code.
You can find out your zip code with the city, state, and street address.
Oh, that's true.
You can. I could go on a rant
Yeah.
about zip codes if we wanted.
Ooh,
I'm a little
bonus content.
concerned, but
Yeah, tell me about zip codes while Sophie finishes this form.
Oh, don't get me started. So, I was working on a GIS project where I was given zip code data for farmers market transactions. And I was like, oh, I'll just do, just the center, wait, what was it? I was doing population weighted centroids for zip codes. Wait, no, I was doing zip code centroids based on, polygon boundaries around zip codes. And only after
So you got the
doing...
boundary of the zip code and you put a dot on it.
Yeah, but as it turns out, you can't put a polygon boundary around zip codes because that's not how zip codes work. Zip codes
How
are
do they work
points.
then? I thought that was how they work.
No, zip codes are points, routes, and roads. So you cannot, for most zip codes, you cannot completely and exclusively box around the zip code boundary.
Like there could always be an extra bit hanging off somewhere.
Like you could have a road that's in the same zip code half a mile away.
success! I am going to
Oh.
Japan.
Congrats.
Now I just
I mean,
have
I
to
guess
make...
that makes sense from a assigning zip codes perspective instead of making like God's most gerrymandered multi-polygon boundary.
Yeah, but
God's What? What was that
I
word
mean, when I get
salad? Okay.
gerrymandered into the poor zip code.
Yeah, that's how that works.
poor bit.
Yeah.
Somebody's been watching Miles in Transit. So this brings us, now that I'm done ordering my Star Wars tickets.
This brings us to something or other about rail trails.
Positives of rail trails. Number one, look at all these trails. Trails do make it quite easy to build out safe biking infrastructure in your community. And I certainly know that there are many such
there with-
trails here in Salt Lake City that are good.
Yeah, up there with canal and river trails, they're like always going to be some of the best bike infrastructure because they're not glued into and around all the car infrastructure. They're just on their own. It's like if you made a pedestrian and bike only street, except without all the political effort that takes.
Canal Trail mentioned.
Canal Trail, Murdoch Canal
Yeah.
Trail, my beloved, the best freaking trail in
Oh
the Salt
god,
Lake
it's
metro area.
amazing.
Don't
The
get me
instant
started.
they figured out you could make the path wider than 10 feet, my mind was blown.
Well, and also it's like, the only
14-foot
one.
wide path? Oh.
It's the only one that has decent subsurface work. So.
Oh, yeah, by far.
so
Because
it,
they
like-
had to.
So it's like not horrible and bumpy all the time. Anyway.
Yeah. They made it extra wide, the subsurface doesn't suck. Like, what is this? Road engineering?
I know, shocking.
Privilege?
There's like a separate area
All
for
those
pedestrians
privileged-
so you can go as fast as you want. Yeah, it's great.
In some sections, yeah, but the other sections are so wide you can, pass pedestrians comfortably and safely at speed.
Shocking.
It's like, what is this, university campus?
Yeah. But this brings us to what I consider the potential problems with rail trails. The first of these being most advocates for rail trails, and to be honest, off-street trails in general, tend to see them as an exclusively recreational amenity, so these things are not normally built for practical everyday commuting or other transportation needs.
I have the perfect example of this. So, you know how Parley's Trail in Salt Lake has a set of bridges that go over the I-80, I-215 foothill interchange?
Uh-huh.
Those bridges get you to every side of every road. That's great. They do what they're designed for. But the bridges and connecting trails are built kind of in a vacuum, and even when the trails go, like, right up against the neighborhood, like, I kid you not, 10 feet away, sort of thing, they'll still be fenced and walled off. Like, they weren't built with people making local trips in mind. They were built to provide long-distance connectivity.
You drive to the
unknown
trailhead
endpoint to
and
unknown
you
endpoint.
park, and then you take your little bike ride, and then you drive home.
Yeah. So, major connectivity problems come from this.
The second problem being that most lines that are, quote, rail banked, unquote, by conversion to trails are never coming back. If you know who Elon Levy is, he's kind of a famous transit sort of guy. By 2011, only 9 had ever had service restored to them, and I'm willing to bet that there haven't been a ton more since.
My fan theory on this is that the rail trails are just so nice that people don't want to get rid of them or even temporarily close them to put in a real rail line.
Yeah, that's not a theory. So,
Okay, I can hedge as much as I want.
yeah, no, you are correct. So rail trails are in some ways what we might call kind of a sustainability paradox, right? And what is a sustainability paradox? A sustainability paradox is when doing a thing that is good for the environment and the community rules out doing something that would be even better for the community and the environment, right? Like, a lot of rail to trail lines are built in urban areas on lines that should probably be converted to, like, I don't know, a light rail line, or better yet, a regional rail line. The very famous Monon
Cough,
Trail.
cough, Los Angeles.
Yeah, Los Angeles, a lot of places. Here, actually. The famous Monon Trail in Indianapolis, for example, would be a perfect commuter rail line to connect many of the affluent northern suburbs, including Carmel, Indiana, famous for its roundabouts and trails. But public popularity would make such a conversion effectively impossible, right? Like, because nobody wants our, lovely trail to be shut down and then ruined by loud, stupid trains going next to it.
It's literally applying NIMBY logic to bike infrastructure somehow, which I didn't think would ever happen.
Yeah, never. And then, the Atlanta Beltline, right? You might have heard of it. It's a very famous, rail trail running in, like, an old kind of sunken rail line that runs around the edge of Atlanta, right?
Ooh.
And they want to extend the streetcar onto this so that they can have kind of a higher form of transit that's, able to go around this very popular thing. But now everyone is freaking out because it's going to ruin the rail trail to have rail next to it because reasons trademark.
Now, turns out there's a pretty simple solution to this, which is you plan when you're building the bike path for the future build out of a rail system.
They did.
So you set the communities. Oh, they did.
They
What?
did. They told that everyone
What?
knew that was going to happen, and now they're complaining about it anyway because they think it'll ruin the trail.
Oh my god!
Because
have these people never smelt a train before?
Yeah, well, my fire alarm's going off. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay. Have fun.
Ooh, she fire alarm on my
Mood.
pod till I beep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should sample that and use it as the bleep sound effect for the rest of the episode.
Yeah. Reverb it, maybe.
So what was she cooking?
Delicious, probably.
It smelled good.
So anyways, they planned ahead.
Everyone knew this was going to happen. It was already planned out in advance. and everyone's still freaking out because it's going to ruin the trail. So, like, you have to probably do them at the same time, otherwise you're never going to get anything done.
Yeah, and before we even get to that level, the bare minimum that we should have done for previous rail projects and need to do for previous projects is at least plan in physical space for a train right-of-way with the trail. For example, LA has failed to do this on the east end of what could have been the Orange Line busway / future weirdly grade-separated BRT, but they didn't. They put the bike path in the middle of the right-of-way with some landscaping and stuff instead of on the side with room for a train. It's not that hard.
Yeah. Not their best move. So I guess, coming to the sort of point of the episode, right? What we really need is rails, and I have an asterisk here around this word, rails with trails, right? The feds have recognized some of the drawbacks of full conversion, and the U.S. Department of Transportation recently released a report calling for rails with trails for making space for both bikes and trains, right? Like, you have the S-Line, the literal perfect example of this, an old rail corridor that was transformed to make space for a really great pedestrian and bike path, and also transit.
The S-Line is finally an example of something good.
And everybody loves it.
Yeah, no, and everyone likes it, yeah. Well, the S-Line isn't bad because of the S-Line. The S-Line is bad because they decided that it was going to be a stub for no reason.
And because they decided it had to go comically slow for no reason.
It needs to be a streetcar.
15 miles an hour through every intersection to minimize damages when people run red lights.
Maybe they should have put in crossing gates.
Trax
I don't
does
know.
way more than that. Yes,
Or
they should have.
They should speed it up so it won't hit cars running red lights.
Like
car
the
will hit
super
it because
luminal
it'll be out in the
speed so that there's
intersection.
like a super imposition of mass. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure,
it can
that,
phase
yeah.
through stuff.
It's the Flash.
No, anyways, but yeah. So ideally, you build a rail line and a biking and walking path at the same time, and everybody's happy, and we don't have to wait for the transit. We don't have to have people whine about it later.
Yes.
Second best thing you can do is build the bike path now with the right-of-way space and provisions made to later at the transit.
And yes, you can also do what a lot of places have done and build the transit line and then put the bike stuff in later. That's also a good option.
That works as well.
This will be happening along the main corridor of tracks in the near future, actually. So
I didn't know that. I didn't think they actually had space because there's a bunch of, like, it's the space switches sides and there's, like, signal boxes in the way.
they're working on it, but they said that they're planning it along the main line. So I'll believe them.
I'm extremely excited for this.
There are currently, and I should say, for what it's worth, the Rail to Trail Conservancy, even though they're not like the most, biking for transportation focused sort of guys, are on board with this. So let's not call them the bad guys. They're not evil. And then
nothing wrong with recreational bike infrastructure and the people who advocate for it because it doesn't.
unless they also
bike
advocate
infrastructure.
against practical bike infrastructure, which many of them do.
Yeah.
So
as long as they're just for stuff and not against other stuff that helps the wrong kind of people.
ding ding. So currently there are 343 rails with trails, totaling about 917 miles. While that's a far cry from the 22,000 miles of full conversions, it's a good start. And kind of unsurprisingly, probably they're the most popular along transit lines because the class 1s are a pain in the butt. So, the point of the episode being, both is possible.
The point, you said it again.
Yeah, I did. Both is possible, both is good. And I can give you a whole bunch of examples. The S-Line, as we talked about, bunches of the MAX system, right? Like the Green Line where it runs next to the freeway has like a whole bike trail next to it.
Nice.
Some parts out on the west side. So, there's lots of opportunity.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm glad we at least have rails to trails and not just nothing.
Rails to nothing.
Yeah.
Because yeah, even if you're not succeeding in banking the land for a future rail line, at least you're still using it as a linear transportation corridor. Because it would be very depressing to see corridors like this just sold off piecemeal and buildings built on them, because then the corridor instantly loses its value.
Yeah.
Something really
So at least it's doing
interesting
something.
that Royce showed up with the other day is this old busway that they turned a dead rail line into in St. Louis.
Yeah.
I mean, buses don't run on it anymore because of cuts, but like there was a busway, and I thought that was very fun.
Rails to busway.
I mean, that's also not like the worst possible option, right? Like,
It's definitely up there, but no, not the worst option.
no, it's not. Pittsburgh did it. The Pittsburgh busways are great. LA did it. The LA busways are fine and interesting.
They're there.
Yes, they are. So, any
You know what I
other?
wish we did more on our rail trails?
What's that?
Concrete box underpasses. You know, like the stadium tunnel at the university?
Yeah, they really just love to like make you cross like a 10-lane road with like, flashing lights.
Oh, I didn't mean over the roads. Those ones I think actually pair pretty well with the stoplights they use to keep people from blocking the box on the train line.
Then where did you mean?
I meant under the rails, because turns out 2 rail tracks is actually pretty damn narrow. You put one of those concrete box underpasses under it, a little ramp on either side, done. Because a common problem with rail trails like these is you only get to the privilege of crossing the rails wherever there exists a major enough road for a car crossing, which can cause a lot of connectivity problems, like on the track's trunk. So I would love to see more box cut style underpasses, just because the rails are so narrow that you can easily engineer a pretty safe underpass.
I see.
Takes?
That makes a lot of sense. Because you got to switch sides sometimes because of the way that rail corridors work. So having a like cheap way to do it instead of some giant ass
the
bridge.
swoosh gates. Have you ever had to take a tandem bike through the fucking swoosh gates they have on the grade crossings?
Yeah, I think it's
Not
funny.
fun. Not fun.
I would simply be better. Yeah,
Oh,
get
all right,
owned.
Thanks, Joe Biden.
Yeah, this is Joe Biden's woke agenda. That's the new name of our podcast. We're renaming it to Own the Cons.
If only we could get Joe
When's
Biden.
Joe Biden
funded.
and Oh yeah.
Joe Biden, give us
when's
money.
Joe Biden entering his interstate system but railways with trails next to them era?
Probably never, unless he gets like God's strongest Democratic Congress in the next election.
I think he might enter his
Probably
deceased
never.
era first. We'll see.
3 more years. 3 more years.
I haven't.
Hey,
heard
I mean, if
this.
that's what it takes to get the first woman president, man. Like, I don't know. So, in conclusion, let's build a country with good bike infrastructure and the possibility of a strong regional rail network in our cities.
Yeah.
Dude, why do we have to beg for this stuff? Anytime there's a road, it's like perfectly
Yes,
graded.
let me
Everything's up to all the
shovel
minimum
money at
standards.
you
There's stoplights
until-
everywhere.
Yeah. And they just
Why can't we have like nice things but bikes and trains?
because bikes are of the devil, that's why. Quit being woke.
Yeah, my bad. Bike
Stay-
infrastructure is
stay
too cheap to
asleep.
make headlines.
Yeah, stay asleep. Don't be woke, kids. Oh, I need to
All
pull
right,
up
Ayn
Patreon.
Rand.
Hold on.
Couldn't
One
be
step ahead of
me.
you, but that doesn't do you
Because
any good.
I'm normally having Kyle do it for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just make sure to select the active filter at the top,
Yeah,
and
I
then
know.
sort by pledge.
Well, why aren't you guys
I was just
recording
projecting.
in the same room?
Because we wanted to try out the all 3 of us being remote to see if that helps like the flow of the podcast a little bit better.
Okay. Well, it hasn't seemed too bad, so.
Active.
Well, I was hoping it would improve the flow because we're all on equal footing in terms of latency.
Ah, okay, so we all get handicapped, just not me.
Yeah, not just you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So everyone be looking forward to our video on the Orange Line coming out soon, trademark.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Alex, have you ever tried editing 4K on your computer?
No.
Really? The only thing you have to worry about, I've been doing this on my computer a bit for the foaming channel, is just enable the setting for proxy clips in your video editor, and it'll automatically shitify all the videos so you can edit them at like a normal amount of processing power, and then it only touches the 4K during the export.
Huh.
Ah. Okay. If you are watching on YouTube, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and to follow and leave us a rating on iTunes and Spotify. If you like what we do here, please consider becoming a member on Patreon. Patrons receive early access to all of our regular content, as well as exclusive content and occasional merch drops, as well as, events and stuff. Speaking of
If
patrons...
YouTube goes under, they'll get exclusive access to all of our content.
No, they won't, because we'll have Spotify still.
I guess. Anyways, continue.
At fully double-tracked and electrified frontrunner with a trail next to it tier, we have Zach Adams. At regular frontrunner with trail next to it tier, we have generic GT. At frontrunner tier, we have Curtis Herring, Devin Zander, McKay Ransom, Phobos2390, and Tony Stunts.
Front runner if it took the Denver and Rio Grande Western alignment and added the trail next to the front runner.
Maybe.
Would probably be a better and faster front runner.
Probably, but why would we have done that when we could do the stupid thing we did?
Single track, single track, single track.
Whoop.
And at our red line tier, $5 a month.
Except with the rail trail.
What was that?
He said except with a
Except
rail
with
trail.
the rail trail.
So this
Okay,
is the
the
part
red-
of the red line by historic Gardner Station that has, Jordan River Trail
Oh,
access.
yeah, the one connector, yeah.
Okay, the Powerful Red Line with a rail trail, $5 a month. We have Brian Smith, Christopher Whaley, DJ High Will
Hi, Will.
Watkins.
Hi, Will.
Yes. Elisha Kensler, G4, Jacob Whitecotton, Jesse Mayo, Reluctant LA Resident, and Robert P. Walsh.
At the blue line, which already has a trail on its tier, except in an imaginary world where that trail went all the way up to Murray, along Cottonwood Street, and then some, we have Alex Dykelski, Alice MYOB, Ben Busath, Bradley Bondi, Ethan McDonald, Evelyn, Gavin Grotegut, Gonza 12, Jack McCoskey, Martine Hecker-Martinez, Oliver, Sam Myers, Seth, Sky Lakowski, and Zach Verstaat.
And at Green Line tier, in the part next to the Jordan River where it runs next to Jordan River Trail, we have Benjamin Wood, Joshua S. Horvath, and Kapil. Thanks all.
You know what would be a cool trail on the Green Line? If they ran one next to the actual airport curve outside of the airport security perimeter, so you could have 24/7 bike to the airport access without a badge. And even better yet, if they slapped an electric green bike station at the airport.
That would be pretty goated, but why wouldn't you just take the Green Line?
Middle of the 2 a.m., 1 a.m., 5
Oh, that's
a.m.
true. You see,
12
in
p.m.
my head, the Green Line should be 24/7 always, so...
Yeah,
Actually,
if
the
it
orange
did that,
line.
I would not give two shits about the bike access. Yeah.
The Orange Line, when it opens, should be a 24/7 line. That's my opinion.
Real.